The United States and Venezuela have entered armed confrontation in the Caribbean, with bombers and destroyers threatening continental war. Let's go for another update on the world's wars. In the Caribbean, the United States and Venezuela clash again. In Europe, Russia devastates Ukraine but is also attacked. In the Middle East, Gaza remains in flames. The planet is directionless and full of warheads falling everywhere, luckily not yet nuclear. The CIA is back in full force. American bombers cross the Caribbean and destroyers surround Venezuela. Meanwhile, Trump and Putin prepare for a meeting that could change the global balance. Amid the crossfire, Ukraine bleeds and Gaza faces relentless collapse. Sanctions and massive debts have destroyed global trust. Markets are plunging uncontrollably as leaders push the world toward collapse. The world's biggest economies are also at war, financially. Huge debts, sanctions, and tariffs create a scene where no one trusts anyone. China tries to balance itself, while Brazil and India seek deals to escape Western dependence, and the world seems to spin closer to chaos. Diplomatic limits have completely vanished. No leader wants to back down, and every decision becomes a provocation. Talks meant to bring peace now spark new wars. It feels like global stability is history, and the planet is racing toward its own collapse. Global polarization exposes governments kneeling to the United States or China, while societies lose their voice and future. Now tell me openly about global polarization, since I know you're not afraid of being cancelled. Is your country's government kneeling to the United States or to China? Tell me if you think that's the right path. Don't be afraid to criticize or praise where you live. Just a reminder, this report is based on news from Sky News, The New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, Sputnik, RT News, and Telegram. But before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means a lot and helps you stay updated on every story about the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more. Trump no longer hides the game. He ordered the CIA and Pentagon to operate together in the Caribbean. Heavy B52 bombers flew near the Venezuelan coast, while American destroyers approached Caracas waters, all under the same pretext of fighting trafficking. Maduro reacted immediately, calling the move a disguised coup. He ordered the army to mobilize and made moves for war with Russian P-800 Onyx missiles and tanks ready for coastal defense. The atmosphere turned into a rehearsal for real war, and each side arms itself more every day. Amid all this, it came to light that survivors of a boat attacked by American forces were secretly taken to another country. Trump used the episode to show power, and the UN reacted with protests. Even Colombia warned that the Caribbean could become the stage for a continental war. Caracas toughened its stance. Venezuela reinforced naval bases in the Gulf of Paria, received equipment from Iran and Russia, and placed elite troops on alert. Maduro said he would resist any invasion and showed BTR-80 armored vehicles and Buk M2E air defense systems in full exercise. Now, the Caribbean has become the center of global tension. Every missile placed, every ship moved serves as a warning. Trump seems determined to go all the way, and the question no one can answer is whether he will really overthrow Maduro to secure control of the region's energy. Trump ordered a joint CIA and Pentagon operation in the Caribbean, with B-52s threatening Venezuela's coast. Amid this crisis, Trump and Putin returned to the spotlight with a meeting set in Budapest. Even with the International Criminal Court warrant, Hungary confirmed it will host the Russian president. Orban called it an act of sovereignty, openly defying the European Union. The Hungarian chancellor assured that the country wants to be a bridge for dialogue, but everyone knows Moscow wants more. Putin seeks legitimacy and wants to show he still has allies in Europe. Orban, in turn, uses this to position himself as the only one able to talk to both sides. Even before the meeting, the Kremlin surprised everyone by proposing a tunnel connecting Russia and the United States through the Bering Strait. The idea reached Elon Musk, and Trump found it interesting, but Zelensky called it a diplomatic disaster. The project became another spark between powers. The White House handled the matter carefully. Trump sees the tunnel as a chance to reopen economic ties with Moscow. But the Russian gesture sounds like a provocation amid war. Analysts say it could just be a trust test before the meeting in Hungary, where peace and power will be on the table. Expectations are huge. Putin arrives confident, with progress on the front, and Trump wants to prove he still controls the game. But what's said behind closed doors could change everything. And perhaps the world will find that the Budapest meeting isn't about peace, but about who truly rules the coming decades. A meeting in Budapest brings Trump and Putin together. Decisions behind closed doors will decide who truly holds power now. In Eastern Europe, the war remains fierce. Russian troops advance over Donetsk and Kharkiv using Lancet drones and Iskander missiles, while Ukraine tries to resist with Patriot batteries and American kamikaze drones. The fighting is daily, and Ukraine's army fatigue is becoming evident. The meeting between Trump and Zelensky in Washington ended in frustration. Zelensky wanted Tomahawk missiles but was told it would be an unnecessary risk. Trump wants to negotiate a political exit and made it clear that military support isn't endless. Kyiv left disappointed and afraid of being left alone. Putin took advantage of the gap. He sent Su-34 fighters to strike depots and railway lines using F-500 glide bombs that devastate entire areas. The Russian advance was swift, and the message was clear. Moscow won't stop until it secures an advantage before the next negotiation round. A retired British general, Richard Dannatt, said Ukraine can no longer win militarily. He called for a mediated ceasefire and warned that Europe is exhausted without energy or unity. The statement made headlines and divided NATO allies on how far it's worth continuing to bet on the war. The war enters a decisive moment. Putin wants to arrive at the Budapest table with battlefield victories, while Trump wants to prove he can end the conflict in his own style. The suspense is total. Will the deal bring peace or mark the beginning of Ukraine's fragmentation? Russia advances in Donetsk and Kharkiv with Lancet drones and Iskander missiles destroying defenses and exhausting Kyiv. In the Middle East, the ceasefire in Gaza is hanging by a thread. Israel keeps the Rafah crossing closed and blocks humanitarian convoys, claiming the Gaza extremist group is trying to infiltrate fighters among civilians. Meanwhile, the number of victims has surpassed 68,000, and tension grows with every new strike. Egypt is trying to lead an international force to stabilize Gaza after the war. The proposal has UN and US support, but Israel fears losing border control. Negotiations in Cairo are tough, and every detail could decide whether the ceasefire survives or collapses for good. In Lebanon, the Lebanon extremist group claimed to have foiled an Israeli invasion attempt in the south. Lebanese lawmakers say the group destroyed Merkava tanks and intercepted drones. Israel hasn't confirmed, but responded with heavy bombings. The fear now is that the conflict will spread throughout the region. The crisis took another turn when Steve Witkoff, an American businessman and unofficial Trump envoy, said he felt betrayed after an Israeli attack hit Doha, Qatar. The statement exposed tensions between Washington and Tel Aviv, showing that even allies are no longer aligned on the offensive. The Middle East has become the world's powder keg. Every attack and retaliation push the region toward a larger war. The question is simple: who really controls Gaza's fate? And how far can this conflict spread before dragging the great powers into it? Israel keeps Rafah closed and blocks humanitarian convoys. 68,000 people remain without aid or urgent response. While bombs fall, the financial collapse advances. The United States debt has already surpassed $37 trillion and grows by $25 billion per day. Congress remains paralyzed, and the risk of default is real. The American crisis now threatens the entire global economy. In Russia, the outlook is also grim. A third of companies may go bankrupt by the end of next year, suffocated by sanctions and lack of credit. The ruble plummets, inflation skyrockets, and the government tries to suppress protests by cutting civilian areas and investing more in the military sector. China is trying to avoid a chain recession. After Trump's threat of 100% tariffs, Beijing proposed urgent negotiations with Washington. But internally, the country faces a massive real estate bubble, and even historic builders are collapsing. Global tension is high, and there's no easy way out. Brazil and the United States resumed economic talks and closed a round of negotiations considered positive. Brazil wants more agricultural exports and access to military technology. India joined the deal and promises to expand the Mercosur-Asia agreement by 2026. The economy has become a silent battlefield. Sanctions, tariffs, and wars go hand in hand, pushing the world into a systemic crisis. The inevitable question is, how long can markets sustain a collapsing system while leaders play with fire on multiple fronts? The United States' debt exceeds $37 trillion, grows by billions daily, and threatens a global collapse. In Eastern Europe, Al Jazeera's new report shows pure chaos. 3 civilians were killed in Kherson after a Ukrainian bombing, and Russian attacks hit Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv, injuring dozens. The images show total destruction and increasingly empty cities. Ukraine's special forces claim to have destroyed an oil depot and a gas plant in Crimea. Russia responded, reporting damage to power substations and launching new offensives in Chernihiv, which suffered 68 bombings in a single day. Moscow also asked the UN to condemn the killing of a Russian journalist. Trump met with Zelensky at the White House and said he believes in a flexible solution. Zelensky praised the Middle East ceasefire and said he trusts American leadership, but left without guarantees of new weapons. Still, the two remain in contact before the meeting set in Budapest. Hungary remains the meeting point for everything. Viktor Orban's government confirmed it will guarantee safe passage for Putin, even outside the International Criminal Court. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom insists that any deal must preserve Ukraine's territory, trying to avoid dangerous concessions. The report concludes that the line between diplomacy and provocation has practically vanished. With intercontinental tunnels being discussed and new attacks happening daily, the world feels like a political minefield. And the fear remains, what more has to happen for this war to become uncontrollable? Bombings in Kherson exterminated civilians. Images show total destruction as diplomacy fails and fear spirals out of control. Military, diplomatic, and economic crises are now completely intertwined. From the Caribbean to Ukraine, decisions by Trump, Putin, Maduro, and Netanyahu shift the planet's balance within hours. It feels like the entire world is on the verge of a spark that could ignite a global fire. Latin America feels the heat of this tension. Venezuela keeps arming itself and facing the United States, while American bombers cross the Caribbean. In Eastern Europe, Russia intensifies attacks with drones and hypersonic missiles, and Ukraine fights with fewer and fewer resources. The Middle East keeps bleeding. Gaza counts thousands of victims, the Lebanon extremist group acts in the country, and diplomacy seems lost. Each ceasefire lasts briefly, and every new explosion pushes the region toward a larger war. It's a cycle no one can stop anymore. The economy mirrors this instability. Debts grow, companies collapse, and countries seek desperate deals. Asia and South America search for alternative routes, while the West sinks into internal disputes. It feels like the global system is being dismantled piece by piece. The military, diplomatic, and economic crises involving Trump, Putin, Maduro, and Netanyahu have pushed the world to the brink. Now tell me honestly about global polarization, since I know you're not afraid of being cancelled. Is your country's government kneeling to the United States or to China? Tell me if you think that's the right path. Don't be afraid to criticize or praise your government. Thanks so much for sticking around until the end of the video. You're awesome, and I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any updates on the raging nations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up to help this project grow even more.